Your name's Anthony DeMarco, and why don't you tell us a little bit about your background?
Hi, Eileen. Thank you for having me today. I'm an old fart, but I've been around quite a bit. I am a military veteran from the Coast Guard. I worked for a Fortune 500 company called Carrier Air Conditioning. Some people may have heard about it. I studied in university, Inter-American University, and I traveled quite a bit. And in my lifetime, I have 5 different inventions, but the one that we're here to talk about today is an environmentally friendly new green material, which I've been told is disruptive. The way we build our homes and other things in our life, we use way too much trees, we use way too much plastic, and we use way too much concrete, which has been defined as the most destructive material in the world.
You talked about this green new material. How did you come up with this idea?
Well, it's actually quite interesting. It was a mistake. I was living in China for the last 12 years, where I have a corporate training company and I also sell 3D art. And I was doing quite good. The Chinese government did an article about my art because it was the first time they ever saw real 3D art. So after this article came out in this Chinese magazine, a lot of people started to call me asking me for special requests. They want a bust of their grandfather, or the Great Wall of China, a dragon, which is good luck in China, in their home on their wall. So these art pieces got bigger and bigger and bigger, but the material I was using is heavy. It was heavy like clay, and clay is fragile. And when you're putting this on sheetrock on somebody that has a home with dry walls, the walls cannot support the weight of the clay. So I learned a hard way. A couple times these pieces of art fell off the wall and I had to start all over again. So I decided I was going to develop a new material for my art, and only for my art, to be honest with you. And I started thinking of something like paper mache, but more durable and more harder than paper mache, which is pretty fragile. And also paper mache is flammable. I started doing some research about plant fibers in China. And the plants they have over there are incredible. You've never seen some of these plants. And they actually have some plants that have the highest fiber content in the world. And that's what gives strength to wood and trees. So I thought, well, maybe I could do some experiments and come up with this new material. I came up with this, which was my first material. And this one's painted. I painted it white. And this is very light, like paper mache. And I could mold it into any shape I want. And I use this. And then this was very, very good for interior artwork. But then I was asked to do some outdoor work that would be resistant to the weather, rain, wind, storms. And so I had to come up with something much more durable and harder than this material. And I went through about 8 different samples to come up with progressively harder and harder and harder materials. As you'll see, I came up with something like this, which very, very hard and still very, very light. It's just as light as the other material, but about 5 times as hard. Well, you could mold this into doors, into tables, into plywood, into lumber, into fencing, into roofing tiles. One of my friends in China has a company that makes cups, plastic cups. They compress cups. And I asked him, I said, I just want to see what my material would be like if it was compressed. He took my material, the same material that's ugly and just, this is good for artwork. This is compressed under 5 tons of pressure. And as you can see, it's very smooth and it's extremely, extremely hard. So this material here, completely waterproof, completely flame-proof, right? Whoop.
So it can absorb moisture, so it can't rot and it can't burn. Oh my gosh, that would be the perfect 2x4, the perfect plywood.
Exactly. Not only will it not rot, termites won't eat it. It's too hard, and basically it tastes horrible. They can't eat it. It won't warp, split, get mildew or moldy, and basically last forever, because this stuff comes out incredibly hard. On a Mohs scale, it comes out as a 6. But to compare it to another wood, it's the equivalent of having maple, white maple, which is what they make baseball bats out of. You can nail this, you could screw it, you can glue it, you can mill it. Anything you can do to wood, you can do with this material. Because in reality, it is fiber materials, but it's not from trees. On the website, we put a video from National Geographic that shows every hour in the world, there's over 10,000 trees being cut down. They have incredible machinery that just cuts wide swaths of trees. And I always thought that for every tree they cut down, they would plant another one. But what we found out in our research, they only plant 2 trees for every 10 that are chopped down. And if you do the math, you see that's not going to work out. By 2030, the only trees, the only forests we're going to have remaining in the United States are going to be in national parks, because there's so much money in lumber. One adult tree, let's say 12 to 15 inches in diameter, can make 3 pieces of plywood, or maybe 4 2x4s. And to be honest, if you go to a Home Depot or Lowe's and you look at the lumber, you will see that you have to look through a bunch of it to find 3 or 4 pieces that are not defective. So there's a lot of waste. A lot of lumber has cracks or splits in it, or too many knots. So it's not useful lumber. That ends up getting sold to IKEA, and they chop it up in little pieces, and they use it in their, I'm not going to insult them, but in what they call furniture, which is very cheap and basically temporary in nature. But that's not green, because they have to use formaldehyde and phenol glues to press it all together. Those are carcinogens.
Your green mixture, you talk on the website also about how non-toxic it is, how you don't have to use any of those glues.
That's correct. We don't use any chemicals at all. And the lumber that's being used today, especially plywood, it does contain carcinogens. And the real problem is, if there's ever a fire, when that material burns, the fumes are toxic. So we are very conscious that our material is 100% organic, not just green, but 100% organic. There's a big movement going on now, as probably most of you have heard, against single-use plastic. But all plastic is not good for the environment, because we use way too much of it. Our material is not only replaces trees, but because it can be molded into any shape we need or want. And you could look on the website and see 48 different products that we can make out of our material. Remember, it's very, very hard and dense. It'll last forever unless you bury it. If you bury it, it's biodegradable. It'll fall apart in about 15 to 20 years. But yes, we can eliminate about 40% of the plastic being consumed, but we'll never be able to replace all of it. But 40% is better than nothing. When you look at the cost of buying lumber, that lumber has to be transported 3 times. Once from the forest to the sawmill, from the sawmill to the regional distributor, and then from the distributor into all the 84 Lumbers, the Lowe's, the cost that you pay at Lowe's or Home Depot, half of that cost is the transportation cost. Our material can be made either in regional factories. We don't have to transport 3 times. We transport once to a distribution center. The end cost to the consumer is about 60 to 70% less than what they would pay for a similar piece of wood lumber.
Just seems like a miracle product.
Well, a lot of people say so, and I don't know if you realize how much plywood is sold in the United States every day.
No.
Over 800,000 sheets of plywood are sold in the United States every single day. Plywood is a high-use item. People in the building industry can tell you all about it. We found out that this is the perfect material for doing the new 3D printed homes that they're starting to do now, which will become, because of the economy, a very popular trend, because a very affordable house. Well, they're using concrete now, but this is much preferable than concrete, because concrete cracks. Our material will never crack. There's just so many advantages, and it all comes from, I'm going to show you the combination of the material. This is the fibrous material. Can you see it?
Yeah, move back just about an inch. There you go. That's about perfect. Yeah.
Okay, now what I can do, I'm going to mix this with some hot water. I'm going to put it in a little grinder I have here, and then I'll eat it because this is so safe. It's natural. It's 100% natural. It's organic. Tastes like crap, but I could eat it. It's not going to hurt me.
Wow.
Yeah? So hold on. I got a little blender here. And I'll add some water.
I can hardly wait to get this kind of, building materials.
Okay, excuse the noise. That's just a high-speed blender. And all of these fibers, this is what it would look like when it goes into a mold and then be highly, highly compressed, right? It's not pretty until you compress it. When you compress it, it takes on a texture that is either smooth, semi-smooth, depends what you're making. But anyway, let me eat this now, and hopefully I won't fall out of my chair and die.
Right.
It's horrible, really.
High fiber. Do you have anything else you'd like the listeners to know or understand about this new green material?
I need help, guys. I go out and find somebody that's concerned about the environment, that wants to be a distributor in your country or your neck of the woods. You'll earn yourself $100,000 reward. I can't compete against the 800-pound gorillas, but I know that this is a better way to build and a cheaper way for consumers, especially with this economy. This is a recession-proof opportunity for somebody that's looking for an investment in the green industries. You can't get more green than 100% organic. Watch the videos that are at GreenTeam10.org, and that's GreenTeam10.org.
All right.